Has anybody been able to answer the question efficiently? Why? Why Columbus?
No, not yet. I think there were a lot of circumstances, including the fact that, when push came to shove, there weren't as many bidders as he thought there might be.
Right.
Philadelphia, for example, like all along the process, he made it clear that this was about family, about getting closer to home. And so the closest NHL franchise to his home is Philadelphia. It's basically the team he grew up cheering for. Whenever he went to Philadelphia as a member of the Flames, he had, the stands were full of his friends and family. I'm sure he paid a fortune to buy tickets for them all. So that would have been a very logical destination. It didn't seem like the moves that Philly would have had to make to create the cap space were that complicated. Like, somebody would have taken, Van Riemsdyk's contract. So Philadelphia seemed like a logical place because it met that, check that going home for family and friends. New Jersey, okay, he grew up in South Jersey, the team's in North Jersey, but still, it's not that large a state. I think a lot of people thought Lou Lamoriello was waiting in the weeds, and Lou can make players disappear, poof, like a magician on a Vegas stage. So I think that's why all of us that were analyzing this thing going in just figured, listen, I wrote this a couple of weeks ago, you have to take what they say at face value. He wants to go closer to home. He's prepared to leave money on the table. This is about family. And then it ends up being Columbus. And we're, sort of puzzled by the whole thing. But Zeiss, what did he say on the Zoom call?
Well, and that's look at, and Eric knows Johnny better. Okay. But I can only say in my dealings with Johnny, he's a pretty stand-up guy.
Yeah.
I like him as a player. I like him as a person. But if I'm living in Calgary today and where Eric does, and I'm a hockey fan, I'm a little perturbed because Johnny was asked directly by a couple of Calgary reporters, notably Eric Francis and Wes Gilbertson today, why? And his answer was, well, my wife and I, we just decided at the 11th hour that, we didn't want to be in Calgary anymore and we were going to look for somewhere else. Well, we heard about this family storyline for so long. Well, New Jersey made a lucrative offer, if not better than what Columbus did, somewhere in the same ballpark. That's a 2-hour drive from his home, as opposed to the 8 to 10-hour drive home in Columbus. And I just would have liked to seen, if it was the limelight of playing in a Canadian market, then just come out and say it. When John Tavares left the island, he went out. We all know that the photo of him in his Leaf pajamas, and he got ridiculed for that. But at least he came out and said, look, I wanted to go home. I wanted to play there. And I just think, does he owe the fans of Calgary an explanation? No. But I think it would be a classy thing to do at some point. Just to look at, if you didn't like the limelight, just say it. But there are just so many unanswered questions here. And to play that family card the way that he did, and the way that the Flames did, and now not even be anywhere near them. Relatively speaking, obviously Columbus is closer than Calgary, but I just think that, if I was one of his advisors, I would have just said, come clean.
By the way, I know that Columbus is the home of NetJets. And when you have $70 million, Philadelphia to Columbus is 48 minutes. Not 8 hours.
Well, how do you think the Devils feel today?
Well,
that was in their backyard, and he didn't use them.
Well, but the other thing, John, to that point, if he takes Calgary's offer, which is 8 years, times 10.5, you can afford to pay NetJets to fly the family from, Philadelphia to Calgary. Fly private 4 times a year. Buy a house beside your house. Get a family compound. There were
in the Okanagan.
There would have been lots and lots of solutions to that.
So Eric, is there the repercussions of this in Calgary? Does this put a nail in keeping Matthew Tkachuk?
Probably, although, I mean, again, what they're saying publicly and what they're doing privately might be two different things. But publicly, they have made an offer to Tkachuk. They are trying to get him to sign for an extended period of time. I think the feeling was that and for good reason, Matthew Tkachuk wanted to see what would happen with Johnny Gaudreau, because let's face it, I mean, Matthew Tkachuk this year was a 100-point player. He had a career season. Why? Goes back to what I said before. Gaudreau makes the players around him better. So if Gaudreau returns, then I think Matthew Tkachuk sees a path to being a consistent 100-point player in the National Hockey League. Calgary has a decent young core of players and an excellent goaltender. So there's a chance to win there. The compensation would have been, I'm sure they're prepared to pay him $9 million per season. So he gets the money, gets a chance to win. And he, I think, embraces the limelight maybe a little bit more than John Gaudreau does. But without Gaudreau, he probably wants to see, what are the next steps for the Flames. And if they're taking an organizational step back, then he can easily just sign his qualifying offer, make a very, good salary, $9 million next year, and then he can test free agency. And of course, a lot of people believe he wants to go home as well to St. Louis if Calgary ends up being a team that slips back. So yeah, there could be a domino effect to this loss. And if they were to lose their, I would say, third best forward, because I think I would rate Lindholm maybe ahead, then you're taking a step backwards. I mean, they were the Pacific Division champions. They were a good team. Some of those analytics people thought that they had as good a chance to win the Stanley Cup as anyone. So they fell in the second round, but there was optimism in Calgary that if they had Gaudreau back, if they could re-sign Tkachuk long-term, they would have like a 4 or 5 year window there to compete for a championship. And it feels like they're going to take at least one step backwards now and maybe more.